Remember the Maine. We're going to break down Operation Northwoods, one of the 638 times the U.S. government tried to kill Fidel Castro, all the way up through George W. Bush. It all started with Operation Mongoose. Operation Mongoose was made after the absolute obliteration of U.S. forces after the Bay of Pigs. Operation Mongoose was presented to Kennedy as a 6-phase plan to psychologically and physically overthrow Fidel Castro. And it was tagged with another operation called Instances to Provoke Military Operations in Cuba. Pretty sure they just ran out of names on that one.
Yeah. All right, Brandy, Heather, Channing, Brianna, Amber, Sabrina, Melody, Dakota, Sierra, Bambi, Crystal, Samantha, Autumn, Ruby, Taylor, Tara, Tammy, Lauren, Charlene, Chantel, Courtney, Misty, Jenny, Krista, Mindy, Noelle, Shelby, Trina, Reba, Cassandra, Nikki, Kelsey, Shauna, Jolene, Erling, Claudine, Savannah, Casey, Dolly, Kendra, Kylie, Chloe, Devin, Emily, Becky.
So needless to say, the U.S. government, mainly the CIA, was trying to find any single way to overthrow Fidel Castro. They had one small issue: the American people. Not after it, especially after the Bay of Pigs. Thankfully, one person in government had his head on his shoulders: Kennedy. And with his distrust and dislike of the CIA and looking at a possible second term coming up, he was probably just like,
No.
And with both plans, Operation Mongoose and the Instances to Provoke Military Operations in Cuba being thrown out the window, the CIA decided to come up with another plan: Operation Northwoods. See, Operation Northwoods was more of a psyop against the American people to go against Cuba, because nobody at this time, height of the Cold War, wanted to be involved with a nuclear war with Russia, as nuclear winter sounds pretty cold.
And launch their shit, so now we've got missiles flying everywhere, passing each other. Russia's like, ah, motherland!
So the CIA decided to come up with their ultimate American psyop and present it to Kennedy on March 13th. They wanted something along the lines of Remember the Maine from the Mexican-American War. And they gave this plan to Kennedy as a 9-part plan, which breaks down into subparts, which we'll go through in this video. And with this plan, the objective is, and I quote, "Such a plan would enable a logical buildup to be combined with other seemingly unrelated events to camouflage the ultimate objective and create the necessary impression of Cuban rashness and irresponsibility on a large scale, directed at other countries as well as the United States." So they wanted everybody, including NATO, in on this. They wanted to absolutely clear Cuba out using this plan. Now, as I said, this is broken down into 9 parts. So to kick this off, the first part was to start rumors. Yes, rumors. To ruin Fidel Castro's image in the mind of his people and ours. The second part of part 1 would be to, quote, land friendly Cubans on base and stage an attack. And part of that also would be to catch those friendly Cubans. Those same friendly Cubans would then start a riot within the base. Then they broke it down into 10 separate more parts. They wanted to land friendlies, capture those friendlies near Guantanamo, start riots, blow up ammunition, blow up aircraft, lob mortar shells from the outside in, capture any assault teams near Guantanamo in the water or next to it, or do another Maine.
Alrighty then.
They even went so far as to go in depth, saying that they would give funerals to these mock or real soldiers that they end up killing in this adventure. In part 3 of this, it is literally labeled, and I quote, a Remember the Maine incident. They wanted to take a ship, bring it close enough to waters that people could see the fireball and feel the heat. They wanted everybody to know that a U.S. ship was under attack and that the Cubans were there to see its intent and why it was there, and then they attack it and blame the Cubans. Was so far as to say they had to evacuate non-existent personnel. It's pretty insane how far they've thought into this. In the fourth part of this brilliant operation, they have, and I quote, we could develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area and other Florida cities and even Washington. Then the plan breaks it down and says that they want to blame it all on Cuban refugees. And they want to blow up a boat of them headed to the United States. And I quote, real or simulated. They then say they want to take the lives of Cuban refugees on U.S. soil, with, I quote, exploding a few plastic bombs in carefully chosen spots.
Frame it?
Yeah, it's illegal, but everything they do in the Shield is illegal.
They would then arrest a few Cuban refugees and put papers in convenient areas saying that they are part of the Cuban communist movement. Part 4 is probably the most innocent of all of them. Hopefully nobody would have died in this one. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to take B-26 and C-46 aircraft and run them over the Dominican. And what they wanted to do there is they wanted to do cane burning. So if you didn't know, sugarcane was a huge import in the United States in 1959. Cuba alone sent out 60% of their sugar to us here in the United States. And on these burnings, they wanted to make it evidently clear as they could get, that the Cubans were doing this to the Dominicans to try to get the United States involved in Cuba.
All stations, stop Spider-Man!
But why the Dominican, you ask? Well, the Dominican just earlier tried running a coup against Cuba, which resulted in the death of 80 people. Part 5 of this, again, beautiful plan, is pretty innocent as well. They wanted to take an F-86 and make it look as close to a MiG as possible and provoke passenger aircraft, whether that be flying close to it or whatever and whatnot. We've seen a lot of that recently with Russia and Alaska, with Russia getting a little too close to our plane.
Greetings! Watch the birdie!
The next part of this, also pretty innocent, hopefully, but they were hoping to hijack civilian air and land vehicles. If I'm reading this correctly, it says to hijack attempts against civil air and surface craft should appear to continue as harassing measures condoned by the Cuban government. Pretty innocent as far as I can see. Innocent. Part 8, probably the craziest one of all. They wanted to shoot down a passenger plane over Cuba. They wanted a passenger plane and a drone plane to fly out in such a way that they could rendezvous over Florida. Now, the flight path was supposed to be scheduled for either Venezuela, Panama, Guatemala, or Jamaica. So it flies right over Cuba. And when they got over Cuba, that plane was supposed to announce a Mayday call. Now, with that Mayday call, they were then going to blow up that drone plane remotely. And then they were going to take the plane full of people, land them at a field somewhere in the United States, and unload them, pretend that they died. You're asking, how are they going to have a drone plane? Well, the CIA apparently owns civilian aircraft that they were going to paint with the exact same tail number, exact same way as a passenger aircraft, and link it up.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message. Everything burns.
And last but not least, the United States wanted to poke the bear. They wanted to send 4 or 5 F-101s down to Cuba, live ammunition, in a very aggressive manner. And kind of what happens.
Do we have a pellet? Huh?
And on this flight path, the last airplane in the pack would then have a specific time where he would just start shouting off that he's being tailed by MiGs, whether he is or he isn't. Then that pilot would turn around, fly really low, off radio, back to the United States, land the airplane, and they would spread a whole bunch of F-101 parts, about 15 to 20 miles off of Cuba, and claim it got shot down. All in all, I think this is the biggest piece of crap I've ever seen written out. It shows absolute disregard for anything that I have ever seen, for human life, for want for power, for anything. Yeah, communism sucks, but it doesn't mean we have to go to these big extremes. And if something like this has been written about, what has actually happened that we don't know about? Just remember,
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.